Hello everybody, welcome to Red Simulation and my first ever YouTube video. Today I'm going to be showing you the JAR Airbus A330 and we'll be going through my little startup checklist to get the aircraft into a flyable state. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at the overhead, have a look at the pedestal, some of the systems, more importantly the FMC, CDU, which is one of the most tricky parts on the Airbus, and just sort of a quick review of the plane itself. Now, like I said, this is my first ever YouTube video, so I'm not using any video editing software. I'm just recording straight off of the Shadow Play on my 980 Ti graphics card. So this is a one-shot deal basically. If my voice bores you to tears, sorry, there's not much I can do about that. Try and stick with it, because hopefully you might learn something new. You might cover something you weren't too sure about. And yeah, let's get cracking. So a little route today is we're going from a little airport in eastern Spain called Castellón. Airport code is Lima Echo Charlie Hotel, and we'll be going up to Paris Charles de Gaulle, Lima Foxtrot Papa Golf. Now, I won't do the whole flight. Like I said, I'll just show you how to get the aircraft set up and ready to go. We'll probably take off, climb to about 10,000 feet maybe, level off, and that's where I'll leave the video. Probably be about an hour, maybe just a bit over an hour. It's going to be quite a long one, but hopefully I'll cover everything you need to know, and sort of fairly slowly, so you can make notes if you like. So yeah, we're at Castellón Airport, and this is freeware scenery by a company called Dai Media, D-A-I Media. They do some payware scenery as well. I haven't tried it, I have to admit. I might have a look at some at a later date. But I have to say, they have done a truly amazing job on getting this airport looking true to life. I flew here not too long ago, back in the beginning of August, for a little holiday, and yeah, it's absolutely amazing. From these apron textures to the terminal building here, all the little outline buildings, you can see the roads. They've even gone as far as, if I can show you,
power set.
A statue, which is pretty cool and almost exactly as it is in real life. So yeah, they've done an absolutely amazing job on how the airport looks, considering it is such a little unknown airport basically. So if we jump to the cockpit now, I'm using X-Plane 10.45. I haven't updated to 10.5 yet, as I've heard some sort of mixed reviews about it. Some people find it really good, others are struggling with it. So I've just left mine as it is for the time being. I'm using the most up-to-date version of the A330 1.3 R2 for 10.45. They might have updated it for 10.5. I'm not too sure. It might be worth having a look at, but yeah, that's what we're using today. If I'll show you my settings, what I'm running at the moment. These are my rendering options. It's pretty much maxed out, as you can see. Weather-wise, I'm using SkyMax Pro and the NOAA weather plugin. I have got a real weather connector, but I find NOAA gives me a much more accurate sort of representation as what is happening in the real world weather. Real weather connector could be a bit hit and miss at times, but never mind, there it is. Okay, so the checklist I'm actually using comes from JAR itself. They did a few tutorial videos a few years ago, but since they've updated their website, I can't seem to find the videos anywhere on their website, on YouTube or anything like that. So luckily I've wrote them down, and that's what we'll be using today. So let's get going. So first things first, we need to go to the pedestal, and we need to make sure. I don't know what's going on with these shadow textures. They look awful. No, never mind. We'll muddle through. Yeah. So what we need to make sure first is the engine 1 and 2 master switches are off, and that is these two switches here. Now, if you're used to flying Boeing, you'll probably recognise the position in that they're the fuel cut-off switches. Now, they're the same on the Airbus, but they also have a dual function in that they are the starters as well. So on the Boeing, we're used to having starter switches like these up on the overhead, whereas for the Airbus, these do basically the same thing. So there's starter and fuel cut-off switches. So those are in the off position. Next we need to make sure the engine mode selector, which is this switch here, is in the normal position. Obviously ignition start is what it says. When we come to start the engines, put that over, one click to the right, and then we can start engines 1 and 2. So now we need to connect the ground power, and this is where I have a bit of a problem with JAR. There's not much I don't like about them, but on this particular plane I found it a bit annoying, and that is I don't actually have a ground power option. Now it's nothing too major because you can put the battery switches on and start the APU straight away, but if you're doing a turnaround or you don't want to start the engines till a bit later on, just before, it's like, yeah, if you don't want to start the APU until you start the engines, it can be a bit annoying. And the other thing as well is that I bought this plane when it was on sale off the xplane.org store. I was being a bit cheap, I have to admit, but it still set me back around £30 to £40, I think it was. It was still pretty pricey to, like I say, discover that I haven't got something that I potentially need. Now I know if you buy the plane off of JAR's website, it comes with a version of their ground handling deluxe, which is something on mine I don't have. So if you bought it from JAR, you go plugins, a330, and it'd have another little tab for the ground equipment, so like your ground power unit, your stairs, your catering trucks, and your loaders. But I don't have that. So what I had to do is, luckily I had already bought it, so I've already got the ground handling by JAR. If it wants to load, here we go. So this is what it would look like if you bought the plane off of JAR's website. But like I said, I've already bought the ground handling, which isn't such a bad thing because it will work on basically any payware aircraft. So this, the JAR's a320, all of the flight factors is 777, 75, 76. So it's not a bad thing to have, but when you fork out £40 for a plane to discover you've potentially got to spend another £15 to £20 on a bit more software to get it to look how you want, I thought that was a bit bad on JAR's part, to be honest. So just bear that in mind. If you're going to buy the plane, you can either buy it off JAR's website and pay a bit more money for it, so as you get this ground handling, or you can buy it if it's on sale on your org store again, and then just buy this as an extra and have it to work for all planes. So it's up to you. The plane is definitely worth the money. It is one of the best out there at the moment. It is actually really good. So yes, go have a look at it. So let's get some stuff up to the aircraft. So here it is. There's the old ground power unit. Let's get some catering. Let's get some stairs, and let's get the loaders up. So we can close that. back to the cockpit, up to the overhead, and here we go, look, there's your external power ready to go. So all we need to do is put the battery switches on and then connect the external power, and as you can see, the systems are starting to load up now, which is good. So we've got the external power connected, and we can now test the APU fire. Yeah, that's all working as it should be. Now I'm actually going to start the APU now, just to sort of get it out of the way, and it's one less thing to worry about later on in the video, because I've got a memory like a sieve, so I'll probably forget what I've got connected and what I haven't. So we'll go ahead and we'll start the APU now. Like I said, you can start it just before you're ready to start your engines, or at any point you want really. So to start it, all we need to do is go to the APU, master switch on, down one more, and put the start selector on. We come down to the ECAM, and the APU page is displayed. As you can see, it's spooling up nicely there. Just about hear it in the background starting up. So here we go, the APU is now on. So if we just go back to the overhead, and we'll disconnect the external power. There we go, plugins, ground handling. We can get rid of the ground power unit now. There we go. So that's all the APU started. We'll put the beacon on, put some navigation lights on as well. I might be doing things, you know, that aren't right, and you're probably sat there screaming at the computer like, "Oh God, what are you doing?" But yeah, this is just how I'm doing it at the moment. Now there is one other cool little thing I forgot to show you, and that is you can check the braking systems on the aircraft. So what we need to do is, I won't actually do it. We've got the park brake on, so if I take the park brake off now, all of the ground equipment will disappear. So I'll just talk you through what you can do. So what you do is you come over here and you look at this gauge here, and this is your brake pressure in pounds per square inch. So the brakes are currently set on with the park brake, and we're at 2,000 pounds per square inch on both the main landing gear, left and right. So if you take the park brake off, these needles should hopefully move back down to 0. Now what I've done is I've mapped 2 buttons on my keyboard to the left and right brakes. So you take the park brake off, make sure it goes down to 0, and then just test each brake, make sure it comes up to 2,000 pounds per square inch again, or whatever it might read, and just make sure it moves freely, it doesn't stick, the brakes don't stick on. Providing that's okay, just go ahead and put the park brake back on. So that's that. That's what you can do quickly. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. I'd like to do it normally just to make sure everything's working okay. I think it's a pretty cool feature actually. So now we need to make sure the flaps are up. Here's your flap selector, so it's in 0, indicating they're up. There's nothing displayed on the ECAM. As you can see, the flaps are in the up position. Up to the overhead. Make sure the probe window heat switch is on. Which, although it says on in this little box, I can turn it on manually. But if I leave it like that, it's in the auto position. So all of these that you see that are sort of greyed out like this, they are actually on. Yeah, what have I done? That's okay. Yeah, they're actually on. So unless they're showing like this, a fault, or anything's illuminated in them, then you know they're on and they're working, or in the auto position. So that's okay. So the window heat switch is on. Put the APU bleed, this one here, turn that on. Packs, so here are your 2 packs. They're on and they're showing no faults. Cross bleed is okay. And here is the the temperature controls. So just set these to as you require basically. Normally in the straight up position is about right, otherwise the cabin crew will start binging you saying that the cabin's too cold or too hot. And you can check this, or if you go back down to the pedestal, press the conditioning, and here we go. Here's our temperatures. So the cockpit's 22 degrees and the cabin's at about 13 degrees at the moment. So that's all okay. Now we can put the IRSs on, so we can start to get ready to program the FMC. So all we need to do is just move these 3 switches to the nav position, wait for on bat to go out. There it goes. Next one to nav, wait for it to go out. There we go, and then the last one. And there we go. So this is slightly different to the A320. On the A320 it has like a little computer here and a screen along the top that tells you your longitude and latitude. The only difference is when you turn the IRSs on, you have to adjust a few little switches here just to make sure they start to align correctly. If this video is a success and you want me to show you the A320, you know I can always do that at a later date. But yeah, just so as you know, that's the only real difference. So those are all good to go. The beacon's on. We'll put the passenger signs on now if we like. So just put the seatbelts on, no smoking. This is your emergency light switch here. So that just goes up one click. There you go, so that's armed. Landing elevation, which is this dial here. Make sure that's in the auto straight up position. So that's okay. We can do an engine fire test. Yeah, that's all okay. Right, now we can turn the radios on. So just this little switch here, move that into the up position. Make sure we're selected VHF 1, and that's the radio's good to go. Now we can get the ATIS for the airport, or like the weather update. Now I can't seem to find it at this airport to be able to do it through the radio, but you can manually tune it through the radio, or seeing as we're on the ground and we're not going anywhere, if we just go to location, local map, it's always good to do this as well to get these out of the way, because the last thing you want is to set all of this up only to have like a bird strike, or you know, you hit a deer on takeoff or something crazy like that. So next we just go to the little bullseye here, and this is what we're interested in. Also, just take note of this, and I'll explain this a bit more in a little bit. So we basically have no wind. There's no wind direction or any major weather anywhere. So we've got visibility more than 10 miles, and the wind is calm. And also we need this. This is probably the most important bit, and that's the QNH. So we're at 1013 at the moment. So if we go back to the cockpit, just make sure. So we're on 1019 at the moment. And what that does is this adjusts the altimeters on the aircraft, so we're set to the correct elevation of the airport. And once these load up in a minute, once we've sorted the IRSs out, I'll show you what that does. So we just adjust this down to 1013. So that's all good to go. So that's basically our ATIS sorted now. So now probably comes the most tricky part of the Airbus, and that's the FMC or CDU, whichever you want to call it. And if you're a Boeing guy, this is what you're going to find the most tricky, to be honest, and this is what I struggled with the most. But we'll go through it nice and slow. I'll try and explain it as much as I can, and hopefully this will help you in what we need to do. So first off, just press the init page, and this is where we tell the FMC what where we're going to and from, and how high we're going to be flying basically. So we're going from here in Castellon to Lima Echo Charlie Hotel. Make sure you put a /, otherwise it might not recognise the route. And we're going to Lima Foxtrot Papa Golf, or Charles de Gaulle. Put that in, and then here we go, align IRS. So if we have a look at the ECAM screen, here we go, IRS in a line in 7 minutes time. So in 7 minutes we should have all of our navigation, our altitude, altimeters, and everything we need to go basically. So if you come back down here, flight number, I haven't really got one, so we'll just put 001 today. Cost index, I can't remember what Air France use, so if we just go 20. Now I've used PFPX to calculate my route, my weight, my passengers and fuel and everything like that, and it's given me a cruise altitude of 40,000 feet. So if we put 40,000 feet in here, now it's accepted it at the moment, but you'll probably find when I put the fuel and the passengers, once we've loaded the aircraft, it'll probably spit this out saying flight level cruise too high or something like that. That's nothing to worry about. Once we've put the flight plan in, it will then accept our flight level, hopefully, fingers crossed. So I'll show you that again in a little bit. So that's basically this page all done and set up. So now we need to go to the next one. And as you can see here, we've got our zero fuel weight, centre of gravity and our fuel. So this is now where we need to load the aircraft. If I just show you PFPX quickly, show you what I've got. Here it is. If I just release the flight. Yeah. If I go plan again, and I can show you. So this is our route. So we're going to take off runway 6 and land at 27 right. This is all my aircraft. Now this is the thing that I don't like about PFPX, and that is that it says I can carry 363 passengers. Now I know for a fact that the aircraft we're in today is not configured to carry anywhere near that many passengers. It'll probably just be pushing 300, which is a bit annoying. I think you can edit it, but it gets a bit confusing because then you've got to change all like empty weights and takeoff weights and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I'm not a big fan of PFPX. You know, when it comes to planning for X-Plane, it doesn't really work that well. There is an alternative to PFPX, and that's a program called eFast. It's another payware product, but it seems to work with X-Plane a lot better, and I think you can actually export routes from eFast to X-Plane, whereas I'm not sure if you can do it on PFPX. eFast costs I think around £20, and they are just putting it through like a major overhaul at the moment, so that might be worth having a look at once they finished it, because it was a really good program, bit of software, and there's a few sort of quite nice touches on it as well. Whereas like PFPX is like mainly for FSX and P3D, and it costs a fair wodge of cash at probably £29–30 I think it might be. So you know, they're all worth having a look at. It's all swings and roundabouts. You might like one compared to the other. There's also loads of free ones you can use on the internet. You know, they're worth having a look at as well. So you know, just have a little shop around and see what you like the best. So here's our route, as you can see here, displayed on the map. So now what we need to do is just I've taken photos of this on my phone, which is what I usually do, just so as today I won't have to keep flitting in and out of this, back to X-Plane, back to this, just to try and remember all of my bits and pieces. So we just compute the flight. There we go. If you go summary, this is the most important bit here. So this is our release fuel from the airport. So PFPX thinks we're going to need 15.2 tons of fuel to get from here in Spain up to Paris. and it's going to take 3 hours 4 minutes. Well, that's how much fuel we got on board. Now I know for a fact it's not going to, the flight time isn't anywhere near that, because when I flew from Bristol to Castellon it was about 2.5 hours. But you know, it's no major dramas. Next we go to have a little look at the flight plan. So here's our cruising altitude of 40,000 feet and our route all here, and there's our landing airport and runway. While we're here we can check the weather for Castellon and Charles de Gaulle, and also our alternative airports if you have any troubles. Also the NOTAMs, so any special information, what's happening at the airport today, or and at Charles de Gaulle. So that's basically PFPX and what we need. So if we go back to the aircraft, we can now load it. So if we go to the plugins, plugins A330, open load sheet, and this is where we can load the airplane. You can also do it from aircraft, weight and fuel if you want to do it that way, if you find this a bit tricky. But this is what I'll show you today. So we know we got 300 passengers today. So here's our cabins. So if we max them all out, that's roughly 100, 200, 260, 64, 64, 74. So we're probably about 280 passengers. My maths isn't brilliant, as you can tell. So probably around 280 passengers, which is, about 80 less than what PFPX thinks we can carry, which is where it can get a bit annoying. Also our cargo, PFPX says we got about 12 tons of cargo on board today, I think it was. 14.2 tons. So we can adjust all of our cargo weights here. So if I just put this up to, does it work? Put that to about 5,000. Put that into about 5,000. Put this one, just leave it as it is. Yeah, we just have to leave it as it is. So you can play with these to get the cargo as you want. But for today, since it's just a little tutorial video, that's just basically what you got to do. How it affects the plane, so zero fuel weight and bits and pieces like that. And yeah, just have a little play basically. So we needed 15.2 tons of fuel. Now annoyingly, we can only add fuel in 500 increments. So it's either 15 tons or 15.5 tons. So we'll go for 15 today, as that's basically nearer what we actually want. So that's the fuel loaded. So now we can go to the FMC and press zero fuel weight and the block fuel weight, and now it's put all of this information into the CDU FMC, and we can check that against our load sheet here. So we've got a zero fuel weight of 166.6 tons, and here it is, 166.6 tons, so that's all okay. Block fuel 15 tons, about 15 tons, which was right. So now that is all good to go. And yeah, here we go, look, cruise flight level too high. So if we go back a page, it's deleted our cruise flight level. But like I said, there's nothing to worry about. We can come back to that later and pull it back in again, and it'll all be good to go. So now the next thing we need to do is just need to go to the perf page. So press perf, and we can enter our V speeds, which have been done automatically by FMC. We'll leave the transition altitude as it is. I'm not going to be using a D-rated takeoff. I haven't used a top cat or anything to calculate engine temperatures, so I'm not sure what to put in there, so we'll just leave it blank. But this bit here is the most important bit. So this is our flaps. So whereas on Boeing we used to like flaps sort of 1, 2, 5, 15, 10, 15, 20, whatever. Airbus has got like flaps 1, 2 and 3. So we'll go flap 1 today. So we just need to go press 1 / make sure you put that in, up, and then we need to look at this figure here. So this is our takeoff trim. So we need to put 1.8 at the end of that, 1.8, and then that just goes in there like that. And as you can see, the elevator trim is doing itself automatically. Now the thing to be careful with here is if this figure here has a minus in front of it, and if it has a minus, all you have to do is same again, so your flaps 1, 2 or 3 / and instead of up you put DN for down, and then you put in your figure which is displayed here. Just always be careful that you haven't accidentally put a down or an up, depending on what this is saying, otherwise you're going to find it difficult to get off the ground. So that's it. That's the aircraft loaded, and now we can start to plan the route. So all we need to do is go to the flight plan page, and this is where it starts to differ massively from the Boeing. On Boeing, we've normally got a button here that says depart arrive, and that's where you put in your departure airport and your SIDS and your arrival airport and your start. Whereas here on the Airbus, it's all done from the actual flight plan screen. So we go to our departure airport. Here it is, departures. So we're going to be taking a runway 6 today. So put that in. Now if I just have a look on my phone, my route. So our SID is going to be a Mate 1 Papa. So here we go, a Mate 1 Papa. We won't be using a transition altitude. Excuse me. So just down to this button here, temporary flight plan. Click that. Now we can either leave this as it is, or we can insert it, and that'll be it good to go. So I always insert it. I just like to do that. You can do it however you feel comfortable doing. And now what we need to do is we need to find our last waypoint, which was Matex. And here it is, Matex. And above it, it displays our SID, which was a Mate 1 Papa. So we know that Matex is the last waypoint of our Mate 1 Papa SID. So what we do is you go click on Matex, and this is where it is really different to the Boeing. Whereas on the Boeing you'd have like a legs page, and you can just put your airway and your waypoint in like that. So airway waypoint, and just keep going down like that. So it flows a lot better. Whereas on the Airbus it's a bit more long-winded, unfortunately. So for this, we don't need to touch any of this. This is for if you're going to go to a specific waypoint. So say you were doing a transatlantic flight, for example, you could put in 5023N, and that would be one of your NAT track waypoints. So that would just go into that waypoint there. I might do a video one day on how to program the FMC for a long distance like transatlantic flight, for example. But today, as soon as we actually have airways and waypoints, just go to the airways page. So we know our last waypoint was Matex, so it's displayed up here, Matex. So now we need to put in our airway, which is Uniform November 608. So Uniform November 608. It goes up in the via, and then we'll be going to Gearom. So Golf India Romeo Oscar Mike, and that just goes into the 2. So same as when we put our SID in, back to temporary flight plan, click that, and again you can either leave it as it is if you're happy to do so, or like I do, just insert it. Now the other odd thing about this FMC for Airbus is the buttons are upside down, sort of back to front. So you would think to scroll down towards the bottom of our route you'd be using this button, but that takes it back to the top, so you need to press the up arrow, which can get a bit confusing. You know, when you first start out you'll probably be, you know, mashing this button thinking, oh god, why is it not moving? But it's just because, you know, you've got the wrong button, unfortunately. Yeah, back to the route. So we know gear on was our last waypoint, so here is gear on of uniform November 608, which was our airway. So that's our last waypoint of our airway. So like before, go to gear on. Again, don't need to touch any of this. Go to airways. So our next airway is a uniform November 863. So that just goes into there like that. And we are going, our waypoint is Alpha Golf November. So Alpha Golf November. That just goes in there. Temporary flight plan again. Insert. Scroll all the way back down to the bottom to AGN. Airways. So our next one is Uniform Lima. Uniform Lima 873. There we go. To Fuku. So Foxtrot Oscar. Don't read too much into that. Foxtrot Oscar. Uniform Charlie Oscar. And that goes into there like that. Insert again. Scroll all the way back down. This is where it gets a bit annoying, because if you're doing like a long European flight, for example, so from like the UK to Cyprus, you're going to be sat there scrolling for absolutely ever to get back down to your last waypoint. So, you know, it's a bit annoying, but once you get used to it, it's not so bad. So now we're going to a Uniform Yankee. Uniform Yankee 156. 156. There we go. To Adabi. Alpha Delta Alpha Bravo India. There we go. Insert. Scroll all the way down again. To Adabi. Airways. Uniform November 858. Now we need to be a bit careful with our airways, in that some of them might sound very similar, but they won't. You'll never have two airways the same, one after the other. So you'll never have two Uniform November 858s one after the other. It'll always be slightly different. So you can have a Uniform 858 or a November 858, but it will never be the same twice. But you could have, say, this one, then a Uniform Yankee, but then it could go back to a Uniform November. So you just got to be careful when you're putting in your route that you're reading the correct airway. If it's wrong, it usually spit out and say, no, that's wrong, try it again. But yeah, it's just something to bear in mind. So we're going to Vanad now. To Vanad. Go in there. Insert. Down we go. So we are now Alpha 34. Alpha 34. Go in there. To Kovac. To Kovac. There we go. And that is our last waypoint before we put in our start. So what we do now is, I know some people don't bother putting in any of their arrival information, which I find a bit odd, because if you don't, you won't get displayed when you start to descend, so the FMC won't descend for you. You won't know where your top of descent is, so I always put it in, and you know, you can always get the ATIS for your airport and then update it if you need to. So we can either go to this one or this one. They both do exactly the same thing, but I always use this one as it is on my route, if that makes sense. So go LFPG, We are landing on a 27 right today. So as you can see, here's our runways. Here's our VOR runways. But what we want, if we can get it, is an ILS. So here we go, ILS 27 right. Click that, and now we need to select our star for our arrival. And our star is a Cova 6 Papa. So again, using the upside down arrows, go down to there it is, Cova 6 Papa. Select that. I haven't got. We won't use any approach wires. I think that's if you're using charts, and I haven't got any charts. And like I said, we won't actually be getting to the airport today, so it's nothing major. Return. No transition. Temporary flight plan. Put that in, and insert. And that is basically it. So now all I do is I just go to the bottom of the route and work my way back to the top, make sure there's no route discontinuities like you get on the Boeing. So make sure there's no holes in the route, so the route isn't broken. So yeah, just make sure there's nothing like that displayed. Now, as you can see, it's got a universal time up here and down the bottom here. So you've got universal time, distance, and estimated fuel on board. Now this isn't displaying it in the information, and that's because we need to go back and put our cruise altitude back in. So if you go back to init, put flight level 400 or 40,000 feet, and hopefully now, fingers crossed, this won't reject it saying flight level cruise too high or whatever. So yeah, there we go. Just go back to this and just make sure everything's in correctly. Go back to the perf, make sure our V speeds are right, and then back to the flight plan. So now, as you can see, it's actually displaying times. So it's going to take us 11 minutes from takeoff to get to our waypoint of Dormy, and it's going to take us an hour and 37 minutes to get from here in Castellón to Paris, and we're going to have 7.98 tons of fuel on board when we land, which is probably a bit too much to be honest, but we'll just roll with it for today. So now we've put our cruise altitude back in. It's now calculated everything correctly. So it's now got flight levels, times. So that is it. That is basically the FMC good to go. So now what we can do is we can get the aircraft ready for push and start. Also, there's a pretty nifty little feature here, and that is we can get a meta, or our weather update for our airport. So if we go update here we go, this is the weather at Castellón at the moment, and we can also go to our arrival airport. So this is apparently what the weather's doing in Paris at the moment. When we get a bit further to, when you get a bit nearer to the airport, you can just update it again, just make sure nothing's changed, or we can put our ATIS code in. Now when we're flying, it might be a bit difficult to go to, say, the map like we did earlier and get the ATIS code that way. So what I usually do is just go on my mobile phone, just type into Google our arrival airport, so LFPG ATIS, and it usually comes up with some options. So like SkyVector is a good one, and that'll give me all of my radio frequencies, so like the tower, my approach, ground, ATIS, and we just put those into here. So using this little wheel here, just adjust the codes as to what we need. So I usually put my ATIS into here, and then when I get a bit further to the airport, it'll automatically detect it. So make sure it's on the active one, and it will detect it, and it will tell you your weather, so what runways are in use, the temperature, your QNH. Remember this little bit will tell you that. You know, if there's any bad weather anywhere, anything like that, it'll give you the relevant information. So yeah, that's good to go. So if you go, just make sure our flight directors are on, which they are. And as you can see now, the IRSs are aligned, so we've got our navigational displays, our altitudes, our speeds, our route. That's all sorted. So the flight directors are on. If we put this up to 10,000 feet, So just put this straight up to 10,000. There we go. This is the other good thing about the A330, which I like compared to the A320 by JAR, and that is it's a lot easier to control these dials. So in the A320 it's similar to this, where you've got to click and hold and drag. Let's get rid of that. So you have to do that on here. So if you want to go up to 10,000 feet, you might have to click here and then drag it all the way across like that. Come back and do it again. Same for your speed and your heading. And you know, if you've got turbulence, for example, it can be a bit tricky because you're bouncing all over the place. So it's difficult to get it precisely where you want. So that's the good thing about this. You can just use your scroll wheel on your mouse and you get it to where you need. Now, for anyone who's a bit confused on the autopilot for this, if it's got 3 dashes like this and a dot, that means that the autopilot will control those specific things. So the autopilot's going to control our speed, our heading, and our altitude. I know our altitude is displayed, but that's because we need to set it to as we need. As long as it's got this dot next to it, that means the autopilot will control it on takeoff. You don't have to do it like that. You can right click and display your speed like that, so that means we can control it manually, but for today we'll just leave it on the autopilot. So now we've got our all our navigation displays up and running. Remember I said at the beginning, or near the beginning of the video, that we need to pay particular attention to the QNH. So if we go back to our airport and just make sure it hasn't changed, which it hasn't, so it's still 1013. Now this is where it's important to get our altitude correct. So the airport elevation is 1,140 feet above sea level, which is correct. Now if we have this set slightly off, so it's not correct to the correct QNH, sorry, it will display us as we are now 880 feet above sea level, which is wrong. So this is important for takeoff and especially for landing. So if you haven't got the QNH set correctly, you could potentially either overshoot the runway because your altimeters are set too high still, or too low, which means you'll come up short of the runway and crash. So you always need to make sure you get the ATIS, listen to the ATIS, and get the QNH. That's the most important thing. So as you know that you're at the correct altitude. So there we go, 1013. We're back at the correct one. We'll just make sure, just cross-check that this matches up with our backup artificial horizon here. And yeah, that's basically it. We're now good to go. So the flight director's on, the dash lines are showing the autopilot is in control. Come over this way to our anti-skid nozzle steering, make sure that's on, which it is. Now we can get rid of all of the ground equipment, so just have a look outside again, excuse me. Control panel, got rid of that, don't need that. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. These will start to disappear, which they are, lovely. Now the other good thing with this is once they all move away from the aircraft, that the doors close themselves automatically, which is pretty cool. It's one less thing to sort of worry about. So just wait for this one to make up his mind and go. There we are. So once that door's shut, we can close all this down. So you can see the weather's updated itself a little bit. We now got a bit of cloud hanging around. So just hide that.
Before start checklist completed.
So there we go. He's just reminded me of something else. If we look to the left of the captain seat, we have this checklist. Now, as you can see, we've ticked off most of this. So after we've started the engines, this will have another little checklist which we can run through. On the A320, it has a automatic checklist. So the co-pilot will actually go through it with you. and if it's not correct it'll tell you, and if it is it'll just say, correct or whatever. So, if I do an a320 video, that's something I can show you then. So yeah, now we are good to go. So we got to call the tow truck. So if we go to plugins, a330, pushback and towing, call pushback. Now if you go down here on the center pedestal, you notice we have these two options. So we can either talk to the cabin crew, or we can talk to the ground. So if we put it on ground, it'll give us these options. Now once he's connected, this one will light up and we'll be able to go through what he wants us to do basically. So he's just about to lock into place now.
Ground to cockpit. Tow is connected. Awaiting your instructions.
So we just click our little option here.
ATC clearance for push and start. Please confirm. All ground equipment and services clear.
Ground equipment and jetty clear. Doors closed and steering pan in position. Set park brake to release, please.
So now we just need to release the brakes and then tell him. So before we do that, if we go to the overhead, put our fuel pumps on. So there's our left and right tanks. I won't put anything on in the centre. What do I think they are actually on at the moment? So we turn those off because there's nothing in the centre fuel tanks anyway. But we can have a look. So if you go back down to here, fuel. There we go. So there's our left and right tanks. Nothing in the centre. There's our fuel on board, which is right. It also displays our gross weight at the moment and our centre of gravity. So that's all good. So now we can release the park brake.
Park brake off.
There we go. And tell our man on the ground.
Brakes released. Clear to push.
Copy. Brakes off. Clear to push.
Excuse me.
Push back starting. You may start engine, sir.
Right, so now we're good to push and start. So now I know on the. So what we need to do is turn our engine start selector, mode selector to the ignition. There we go, and then automatically change this on the eCam, so it displays our engine page. Oh, excuse me. And now I know Airbus always start engine 1, so we'll go start engine 1.
Starting engine 1.
There we go. We'll look from the outside and we'll get our push going. We'll look from the wing. I really don't know what's going on with these shadow textures, they look rubbish. That's what I love about engines on X-Plane, you get this heat haze coming out the back. I absolutely love that. So we'll just wait for this to sort of stabilise, which it pretty much is now. So we'll go start engine 2.
Starting engine 2.
Have a look from the outside. If I turn it the right way, no. I always get that wrong. It won't line me up perfectly. I've gashed it up a little bit, but it's nothing major. So yeah, as you can see, I'm running at about 30 frames at the moment. That's pretty good for this airplane. I have to admit, it's I can't remember if I said in the start, but it's it can be really frame rate hungry. This particular plane. So if you've got not a brilliant spec computer, just be aware that you might have to crank back on the old rendering options, otherwise it will kill your frames like really bad. I don't have that trouble with the a320 or any of the flight factors. They're normally really good on the old frame rate, but yeah, this can be a bit
Pushback complete.
hungry
Please
at
set
times.
park brake to on. After start checklist completed.
Right, so we'll look at that in a second. So do what he says.
Park brake on.
Park brake back on. Let him know.
Brakes set. You may disconnect the tow.
So he will disappear now.
Bypass pin have been removed. Tow is disconnected. Have a good flight, sir.
So we'll wait for him. So there he goes, he's off. So here we go, here's our after start checklist, and now it's giving us a checklist to check the flight controls. So if we just do that now quickly.
Full up, check.
And as you notice, it's ticked it off.
Full down, check. Full left, check. Full right, check. Pedal full left, check. Pedal full right, check. Flight control check completed.
So there we go. So now after start checklist is put the engine mode selector back to normal. Turn the APU bleed off. The packs are already on, so that's nothing to worry about. The spoilers, so that just goes down one notch to ground.
Spoilers arm.
Or armed is the same as in the Boeing. Anti-ice is as required, so we don't need the anti-ice, which is here. Now we can turn the APU master switch off. So that's the APU going off now. We've done the flight control check, we've done the pedal check. Put our nose lights on the taxi, there we go. Put runway turn-offs on. Auto brakes. If you forget something, there's this little checklist that's displayed on the eCam. So if we set our flaps to
Flaps 1.
Auto brakes to max, which will be the same as RTO in the Boeing, or ejected takeoff. And that is pretty much it. Just taxi to the runway now. So if you look back over here, there you go, it's all ticked. We haven't got a flex temp because we're not even doing a D-rated takeoff. We'll put the TCAS on in a minute, and the packs are as required. So we go back to that.
Okay.
Just say okay. Back to the radio. And yeah, here we go.
Park brake off.
Just taxi to the runway. Now I know A330s don't fly into here. At the moment, the only routes that fly into the airport are Ryanair. Do 3 routes actually. They got Bristol, which is what I went on. That's only during the summer months. One from Stansted with Ryanair. They also do one now, sort of this week actually, to Sofia in Bulgaria. And there's also another airline, I think it's Blue Air or Blue Star. They fly from here to Hungary, and they usually like once, twice a week, something like that. So it's a quiet airport. It's getting busier and busier though, which is always good. So yeah, they won't have anything this size. It's just a nice airport to show you and show you the plane basically. This is like it is in real life. It's not just something they've messed up. I guess for when the airport gets a bit busier, they'll extend this taxiway all the way up to the end, so you won't have to go and do a backtrack. So if you're taking off at runway 24, you don't have to go all the way at the runway, spin it around at the top and then take off. But this is, as you can see, this is what I love about X-Plane, and that is that the runway follows the contours of the world basically, which is something like you don't get in any other sim. So you don't get an FSX, or I don't know if you get it in Prepared, but I haven't seen it. And this is very, very true to life. There is a huge, it's almost like a ski ramp at this airport, and it does go up towards runway 24 like that. So that is really cool. And I know when we landed we came in on 2-4, so we landed on the slope like this, and then when we left to go home for Bristol, we were on a 0-6 like we are today. So we used a ramp to launch ourselves off basically. Now, also in real life, that this hasn't got, unfortunately, is you can see all this sort of like black here on the ground textures. In real life, that's like a huge sort of earth mound. I'm not entirely sure what it's there for, but yeah, in real life, that's the only thing they've got missing is that big earth bank here on the either side of the runway. You sort of land in like a bit of a cut-in, really, but you know, it's no major biggie. So right, let's get this in the air. So before takeoff, put our weather radar on, which is down here. So just put on number 1. TCAS, we put that on now. So you put on to takeoff, like that. Put it all on. Here we go. You know, in X-Plane you don't really have to worry if you're not using any AI aircraft, which I'm not. Just nothing major. We can turn the packs off, but I'm going to leave them on today. Landing lights on, strobes can go on. Don't know if you can see them. The old customary flash rush beacon, which they've done really well. So yeah, here we go. The brakes are
Park brake off.
off. Let's taxi into position. Now, as you can hear, that click, this is where it's different again to the Boeing. So we have, each click is a different setting, and I'll show you that in a minute. So if we line ourselves up, try and get myself nice and straight. There we go, that'll do. Right, so put the auto throttle on, arm the auto throttle, brakes are set to max, ground spoilers are armed. Start the clock. There we go. Let's put this back onto engine so I know what they're doing. Right. Let's get ready for a truly shocking takeoff. Okay, so here we go. So as you can hear the clicks, we go to a manual takeoff go around. Just build speed up. Our brake is definitely off. It's always worth checking. Okay, so the airspeed is alive. Come on, baby, you can do it.
100 knots.
So V1.
Rotate.
And there we go.
Positive climb.
We are airborne.
Gear up.
Gear up. Let's put autopilot 1 on.
Autopilot 1, cross check.
Now this is where we fiddle with the throttle. So you bring it back 2 clicks to flex,
Standard baro cross check. Passing
climb.
flight level 020.
There we go. So it will sort itself out now. Yeah, don't worry about that. And that's basically it.
Flaps 0.
Go flaps up. Have a little look from the outside. Looks good. Just wait for us to hit this next waypoint, and then we'll start climbing again. So now we can turn off a few of these lights. So nose off. And that is it. That is
After takeoff checklist completed.
There you go. Landing gears up, flaps up, packs are on, and that's QNH is set. So yeah, there we go guys, that is how you get the A330 from cold and dark to takeoff. I know it's a bit of a long-winded process and you're probably bored to death, and if anyone is still here watching, I will be truly amazed. But yeah, if you've liked the video, let me know in the comments. Try not to be too harsh. If you want me to do any more videos on the A330, so like a full flight, try not to take as long next time. So, you know, start up, show you what to do in the cruise. There's not much to do. Show you what to do on the landing. We can do that. Any other planes? So I got the A320. I've got all the flight factors, the 777, 75, 76. I've got all of those. So if you want me to do a video on those. Any other simulator games like Truck Simulator, any like bus simulators. Not a big fan of first-person shooters, but you know, if you've got any suggestions, let me know. If you've got any suggestions for like video editing software which I can use, let me know about that as well. Any other ways to record videos, you know, I'm happy to have a look, see what we got. But yeah, like I said, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope you find it useful. So I hope you weren't too bored. And for me here at Red Simulation, thank you very much, and I hope to see you all again in the near future.